The following is a Bahamian Media History production on print journalists in the Bahamas by Shadia Goldborn and Bethany McCarty.
On this journey of understanding the print industry through the eyes of today's journalists. We have the privilege of seeing the face behind the story. Would you kindly state your name and the company you work for?
Hello, everyone. My name is Leandra Rule, and I work for the Tribune.
Okay, so Leandra, where did you study journalism?
So I studied journalism at the University of the Bahamas for 4 years.
Okay, great. And how long have you been in the industry so far?
Well, I would say, about a year and 2 months. I started the Tribune literally right before Dorian. And interestingly enough, I'm actually from Abaco, which is one of the islands that was hit by Dorian.
During the times when you had to write those stories, how were you emotionally seeing that it was from your home place?
Well, it was extremely hard because this was my first week at the job. And at the time, of course, you wanting to impress your employers and just trying to do the best you can. And then all of a sudden, something as major as Dorian hits. And it doesn't hit just, not just the Bahamas, but someplace that's really daring close to your heart. Said, and even speaking to, I remember having to interview some people who came from Abaco who I knew of. And just to see the look, the terrified, just to see the looks on their faces, they were completely, I cannot believe this happened to me. Many nights I could not sleep, not knowing what was happening. So I would say it was a crazy experience.
Now, I just want to know what led you into pursuing a journalism degree.
I wanted to focus on communication. Not necessarily journalism, but as you know, at UB, it was media journalism. That was the main focus.
Now, in one word, describe the type of journalist you would perceive yourself as today.
One word.
One word.
I would say, what would I say? To be balanced. I would say balance.
Now we went to how you are today, the type of journalist you are today. What kind of legacy would you like to leave as a journalist?
I would say I'm obviously a hard worker because I don't want anyone, that goes without saying for any person who's employed at a company or a particular workplace. You want to be known as a hard worker. You don't want to be known as someone who's lazy, or your articles or whatever work you're doing isn't, it's not neat, or it's not organized, or, you can tell when someone's putting a lot of effort into the work that they do. So I obviously want to be considered someone who is hard worker, someone who's accurate and who, strives to do the best that she can possibly do. And so, that's the legacy that I'd like to leave.
That's your 5 cents. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us, Leandra. We really enjoyed it.
Here with Jasper Ward, reporter at the Nassau Guardian. Thanks for joining us, Jasper. First question, what led you to this profession of journalism?
So I was I was an academic science student at Sierra Walker. And so I was on the debate team, and I was involved in a lot of speech competitions during my time in high school. And that was for grade 11. And by the senior year, grade 12, there was this new show that was coming on set, and it's called The Youth Zone with Clinton Watson. And the head of the debate team at the school reached out to me, my classmate Ronaldo, and my other classmate Travis, who's now a member of parliament. It was like, I think this would be interesting for you guys. You should go to the auditions. They're next week. And I told my mom I wasn't really interested. She's like, still go, girl. That sounds fun. I went. I was shaking, I was nervous, and somehow a week later I got a call back saying that they wanted me to be a youth reporter. And so for a year and a half, I did this segment on the show called Student of the Week, where I'd highlight different young Bahamians who were excelling in whatever fields they were in as like teenagers and stuff. And, you know, just 1 year of really doing that during high school, I kind of just fell in love with interviewing people and putting together stories and being able to tell these stories and see the impact they had on the lives of other people. So when it was time for me to enroll in COB that fall, I was actually already accepted in as a biochem student. I walked into the admissions office and I was like, I would like to change my major. And they're like, honey, don't you think it's a bit late for that? And I was like, well, it's orientation, so I'd like to hope not. And I switched my major that very day from biochem to journalism, and I never looked back. Next question. How long have you been in the business, and are hobbies even possible with the kind of life journalism? I've been, I guess the first time I really started doing news was the summer of 2016. So I guess I really started doing news for the first time during the summer of 2016. I did a 1-month internship at the Nassau Guardian, and I got my first, few publications in a national paper. And so I guess theoretically I can count that as starting, but I guess not.
Yeah.
I took a break, went back, finished my senior year of undergrad, then went off to grad school. Yeah. And I got an email a Facebook message from Kenya, I think it was like April or May, when I was winding up my master's program in London. And she was like, hey, would you be interested in coming to work for the Guardian? And I just remember thinking how stressful being a journalist was. And I was like, oh, what the hell, sure. And when I moved back home that September 2018, I started journalism. And it's 2 years later, I think. It's been pretty fun, and still like having so much energy, being so excited and wanting to do like more stuff. And the pandemic came, and even before like the pandemic, I'd be off or on vacation, and I'd get like a story that I thought was an important story drop on my lap, and I'd look and I was like, hey, Denise, I'm sending you a story. She's like, aren't you on vacation? I'm like, yeah, but this is a story that needs to be in the papers. And so she's kind of always telling me like to take time for myself. But I don't quite know how to do that. Like, even when I'm on vacation now during the pandemic, I was on last week, and I still found myself kind of worried. I was like live tweeting stuff, and so it really wasn't like a time off. So I guess if I had to what are some of the challenges today's journalists face, and one word describe the type of journalist you are? Challenges. People don't like to talk to us. Like, folks are just reluctant to talk sometimes. Folks are just reluctant to talk sometimes, just across so many different fields. People always like to box it into just government, but I'd call individuals from like the private sectors, people who are being impacted by things, and they don't want to talk. And sometimes they aren't negative stories. A lot of the times they're not negative stories, but folks are just reluctant to talk to the press. I think there's a distrust for some reason, which is quite confusing to me. But I think that's a major challenge. And sometimes, we have a quota we have to keep, and sometimes it's very challenging finding stories that are important and that need to get out there, and being able to deliver them in a timely manner when you're trying to, fill a paper. Because, you really don't want to just have a newspaper filled with reactionary stories of this politician saying that to that politician and that one says you can get that, How would I describe myself? One word for what? As a journalist? I don't know. Awkward? Like, see what you like to leave as a journalist. My goal every day is to just write stories that are impactful and that kind of change the conversation and empowers people.
Welcome back. Today we're here with Sloan Smith and Royston Jones, and they will be discussing some of the challenges, pros and cons in the journalism field.
Give us just a bit of an insight of the challenges you have. Okay, so just to start off, I would have, like I said, I would transition from the Nassau Guardian here at Eyewitness News. And what we've managed to do over the past 2 years is create a new platform, a digital platform that gets news to the viewer a lot faster. So you see we have updates going on every day, and yet we still are able to produce new news stories with the newspapers the next day. And so I guess a major shift that you would have seen, I guess, throughout these past few years with news and print journalism is that most people don't read the newspaper. Most people don't buy a newspaper, but they would more than likely click on the link on Facebook or click on a link on social media or even get the news on their phones. And so a challenge in that is kind of being able to shift to that new model and being able to get news directly to the viewers, directly to the public. I think another challenge that comes into that is that we're now in a place because of COVID-19 that we have professional journalists now competing with what we call citizen journalism, right? And that is those Bahamas News Companies and Bahamas Press and those type of organizations that are on social media that are being given a sense of legitimacy. And so they don't put in the same effort that, the print media, the news media, the broadcast media put in to bring news into, the public every day, but yet you see they're inaccurate most of the time information circulating around. So now as journalists, we're now finding ourselves chasing behind those organizations just to ensure that that false information that is being put out, that we kind of dash that before it becomes too big. And as you know, with Dorian, with COVID, one of the most dangerous parts of that is the fact that once you have fake news, you kind of get chaos.
Keeping up, our content has changed. The public has a desire to be entertaining largely because we're competing against, as they say, citizen journalism. We're giving people more sensationalism than educational information, so we have to balance as responsibilities to people what they want to know or what they need to know. So we're being pushed that direction, and we're just being pushed by social media quite frequently. People say, I want to know this, what's happening with that, who's doing this. So we're constantly balancing what you need to know and what you want to know. Giving you things that are going to guide you in terms of being your quality of life, being a more responsible citizen, things you need to know about crime, about politics, about your government, about decisions. And that is challenging.
Royce and I used to have these competitions and we're like, who's going to get the top story every day, and if you got top story for a week, that means you're above the fold for every single day of the week. And I know I was able to do that once, and I felt so proud about that, right? Yeah, and those are the good times. Story, working all day, you're trying to get the story, finally get a story, you just bring out into a song. Finally, it happened. Because it's tedious and it's a lot. You might not get your first story until 3, 4 o'clock in the day, but your deadline is at 6. 3, 4 stories, right?
That's like a press release. Trying to develop stories with multiple sources that's talking about information.
Yeah.
Not easy to know.
Right, and that's a lot of pressure.
It's as luxurious as it looks. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. The pay isn't that good. The hours aren't good at all. You'll barely have a social life. Okay, don't tell them. But it's fulfilling if it's something that you're interested in.
All right. Thanks, Sloan and Roston. You gave us future journalists a lot to think about.
We're here today with another one of our print journalists in the Bahamas. Would you kindly introduce yourself for those who may not know you?
Sure, I don't mind doing that. My name is Ariel Boleg. I'm a print reporter for the national newspaper, The Tribune. I've been there since December, but prior to that, I was actually an intern and a full-time reporter at Jones Communication. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us. As a print journalist, what are some of the challenges you guys faced as the country faces these different disasters like Dorian, and now we have the pandemic?
Well, for me, I studied in the UK, And one of the starking things that in any situations, I think we feel there's a limited press freedom we have in this country. You know, in the UK, when I was studying media ethics and law, you could actually report someone without their consent if they are a public figure or they are a person that is known in the public, because at the end of the day, and if they're found to be doing wrongdoings, because at the end of the day, it's the public's right to know.
As a fairly new reporter in the Bahamas, what would be some advice you would give to upcoming reporters trying to get into the field?
Well, first, I like to say, I think it's important, it should be known. Being a good journalist is so much more than just being a good writer or being a good person who could speak and look good on camera. That's a dime a dozen. Sorry to break it to you. They exist a lot. I think what separates people like the okay journalists from the great journalists is people that have persistency, that are confident, and most importantly, have good people skills.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ariel, for your time. We very much appreciate it. And we hope that, this information gets to someone and it actually impacts. Well, I know it will impact and improve the way upcoming journalists see the industry, and at least they'll know what they need to do to make an imprint, before they get into it. So thank you so much. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it?